In a small, peaceful town surrounded by hills and trees, lived a girl named Layla. She was 23 years old, kind-hearted, and full of dreams. She didn't have expensive clothes. She didn't own the latest phone. But she had something far more beautiful. A heart that believed in love, and a mind that believed in hard work. Every morning, Layla would walk to a small cafe where she worked as a waitress. She served tea and bread to tired travelers, smiled at grumpy old men, and listened patiently to women who had no one else to talk to. The cafe wasn't fancy. It had old wooden chairs, one broken window, and a radio that played old songs. But to Layla, it was home. She had been working there for 3 years. Saving every coin. Not for clothes. Not for a car. But for a dream. One day, I'll open my own little bookstore, she would whisper to herself at night. A place where people come to read, rest, and feel loved. Her friends laughed. Layla, you're too simple. That's not how life works. No rich man is coming to rescue you. But Layla never waited for anyone. She believed in building her own future. She lived with her younger brother Ayan, who was only 12. Their parents had passed away in a car accident 5 years ago. Since then, Layla had become both mother and father to Ayan. She cooked. She cleaned. She helped with his homework. At night, when the world was quiet, she would stare at the stars and dream. Sometimes, she wondered what it would be like to fall in love. To meet someone who didn't care about beauty or money. Someone who saw her soul, not her shoes. But Layla never said it out loud. Because in her town, love was a luxury. And she couldn't afford it. It was a cold, rainy evening. The cafe was nearly empty. Layla stood by the window, wiping a teacup, watching raindrops race down the glass. Suddenly, the door opened. A tall man stepped inside. He was wearing a dark green coat. His face was half covered by a scarf. His shoes were muddy, and he looked tired. Layla smiled politely. Please sit anywhere you like. He nodded and chose a corner table. As she walked over to him, she noticed something strange. His eyes. They were sharp, observant, like he was searching for something, or someone. What would you like to order, sir? She asked kindly. He looked up. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said softly, Just tea. Nothing else. His voice was deep, calm, almost familiar. Layla nodded and walked away, trying not to stare. But something about him felt different. He didn't look like the other travelers. He looked like someone who didn't belong here. Someone hiding something. She served him tea. He said thank you. And then he sat quietly for almost an hour, just watching the rain. Before leaving, he placed a folded note under the cup. When Layla picked it up, it simply said, You're not like the others. Don't let this place change you. No name. No number. Just those words. Layla stood there stunned. Who was this man? Why did his words feel like a promise? The next morning, Layla woke up early, just like always. She packed Ayan's school lunch, tied her hair in a neat bun, and headed to the cafe. But something was different. She kept thinking about the man from last night. The way he spoke. The way he looked at her. And especially, the note he left. You're not like the others. Don't let this place change you. What did he mean? Did he see something in her that she didn't? Layla shook her head and smiled. It's nothing. Just a kind stranger passing through. But deep inside she knew. This wasn't the last time she'd see him. By noon, the cafe was full of noise and chatter. But not about food. Not about weather. Everyone was talking about one thing. A rich man had come to town. He drives a black car. He bought that old villa near the lake. They say he's young, rich, and handsome. But no one knows his name. Layla listened quietly as the other girls gossiped during their break. Maybe he's here to start a business, one said. Or maybe he's running from something, another whispered. Layla stayed silent. Her heart beat a little faster. Could it be him? The man from the cafe? The one with kind eyes and gentle words? She didn't know. The days passed. Layla didn't see him again. But every evening she would glance at that same corner table, half expecting him to appear. Then on Thursday, just as the sun was setting, a black car stopped across the street. Out stepped the same man. This time, no muddy shoes, no scarf. Just a simple white shirt, dark jeans, and that same calm expression. He walked straight to the cafe. Straight to Layla. "One tea, please," he said with a soft smile. She nodded, trying to stay calm. But inside, her hands were shaking. "You came back," she whispered as she placed the cup before him. He looked at her and said, "I told you, you're different." Layla wanted to ask his name, his story, why he was here. But she didn't. Because somehow she felt that everything would unfold in time. He didn't stay long. Before leaving, he placed something on the counter. A small card. It had just 3 words. "My name's Zion." Layla sat by her window. Ayan had fallen asleep. The streets were quiet. She held the card in her hand, staring at the name. Zion. It sounded like something out of a storybook. Mysterious. Beautiful. Powerful. She didn't know who he really was, or why he chose to talk to her. But in her heart she knew one thing. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. The next day, everything felt brighter. Layla walked to the cafe with a strange excitement in her heart. She didn't wear anything special. Just her usual dress and worn-out sandals. But her smile was different. It carried a small hope she didn't fully understand. Maybe he'll come again today, she thought quietly. And he did. At exactly the same time. Zion walked in. He nodded at her politely, chose the same table, and ordered the same tea. But this time, he stayed longer. Layla brought his tea and gently placed it on the table. Zion looked up and said, "You remember my order?" She smiled. "Hard to forget when it's the only thing you ever ask for." He laughed softly. There was a silence, but not the awkward kind. It felt calm, peaceful. Then Zion asked, "Have you always lived in this town?" Layla nodded. "Born and raised. I've never even left." "Don't you want to?" he asked. Layla looked outside the window at the trees and dusty roads. "Sometimes," she whispered. "But my brother needs me. And dreams are expensive." Zion tilted his head. "What dream?" Layla hesitated. No one ever really asked. No one ever cared. But something about Zion made her speak. "I want to open a bookstore. A small one. With warm lights and wooden shelves. A place where people feel seen. Safe." Zion looked at her quietly. Then said something Layla never expected. "That's a beautiful dream." As Zion came to the cafe more often, people started talking. Some whispered. Some stared. Some laughed. "Look at her. Acting special now. She thinks the rich guy likes her? He's just playing around. She's nothing but a waitress." Layla heard it all. Every cruel word. And even though she tried to stay strong, it hurt. One afternoon, after Zion left, 2 women walked up to her. One of them, her old school friend, sneered and said, "Don't dream too big, Layla. Men like him don't marry girls like you." Layla felt her cheeks burn. But she didn't reply. She just turned away and kept cleaning the table. At home, Layla sat with Ayan, pretending everything was fine. But inside, her heart was heavy. Was she foolish to talk to him? Was she just a poor girl chasing an impossible dream? Then she remembered Zion's words. "You're not like the others." And for the first time in a long time, she chose to believe that. Not because he said it, but because deep down, she knew she was more than what people saw. Zion started visiting the cafe almost every day. Same time, same table, same tea. But something had changed. Now, when he came in, Layla smiled without thinking. Zion's eyes searched for her the moment he stepped inside. And though no one said it out loud, everyone noticed. A quiet friendship was beginning to grow. Zion never brought flowers. He never said big, romantic words. But his actions spoke louder. One evening, Layla was serving tea when her sandal broke. She stumbled a little, nearly dropping the tray. Before she could say anything, Zion stood up, gently took the tray from her hands and said, "I'll wait. Go fix your sandal. I'm not in a hurry." No man had ever done that before. And in that moment, Layla didn't see a billionaire. She saw a gentleman. A few days later, Zion walked into the cafe with a small brown paper bag. He placed it quietly on Layla's counter and said, "I saw this and thought of you." Layla opened the bag. Inside was a book. Old, slightly worn, but beautiful. It was titled, "A Place Called Home." Layla looked at him, surprised. "You remembered I loved books?" Zion smiled. "I don't forget what matters." Layla held the book to her chest and whispered, "Thank you." That night she read it word by word. Not just because she loved the story, but because someone finally listened to her. One afternoon, Layla brought him a cupcake on a small plate. Zion raised his eyebrow. "I didn't order this." She blushed and said, "I baked it. For you. I wanted to thank you for the book." Zion took one bite and smiled. "Best cupcake I've ever had." Layla laughed. And for the first time in a long time, she laughed without fear, without worry, without pretending. Because in that moment, everything felt right. Zion would talk about his travels, without ever mentioning how rich he was. Layla would talk about her brother Ayan, her dreams, her fears, and her silly childhood stories. They didn't need to say, "I like you." It was already there. In the pauses. In the smiles. In the way they looked at each other when the world wasn't watching. One morning, Layla found a note taped to the cafe door. It said, "Rich men don't fall in love with poor girls. Wake up." Her hands shook as she read it. She looked around. No one was there. But the message was clear. Someone was watching. Someone was jealous. That evening, Zion sat quietly at his usual table. He looked at Layla for a long time. And then he said, "Don't let the noise of others drown the sound of your heart." Layla blinked. "What if I'm scared?" Zion looked at her gently and said, "Then be scared. But be brave anyway." Zion's visits to the cafe became part of Layla's life. She didn't wait for him. But her heart always hoped. And when he walked in, it felt like sunshine had followed him through the door. But what Layla didn't know was that Zion was hiding something. Something big. Something that could change everything. At night, when the cafe closed and the town went to sleep, Zion would drive far away from the quiet roads, to a massive white house on a hill. A house no one knew was his. There, inside silent rooms and polished floors, he'd sit in front of a wall full of photos and papers. Photos of businesses, logos, contracts, bank reports. Because Zion wasn't just rich. He was a billionaire. Not by accident, but by blood. His father owned one of the biggest companies in the country. And after his father's death, Zion became the only heir. But he didn't want the attention. He didn't want the fake friends. He didn't want the women who only loved his wallet. He wanted something real. He wanted someone who saw him, not his bank account. And for the first time, he felt like Layla might be that someone. Every time he looked at her, every time she talked about her dreams or her little brother, his heart whispered, "Tell her the truth." But his mind said, "What if she changes? What if she starts seeing you like the rest?" So he stayed silent. Day after day. Smile after smile. He gave her tiny clues. But never the full picture. One afternoon, when Layla returned home from work, she found a small package on her doorstep. Inside was a book. But not just any book. It was about business and dreams. And on the first page was a note. For the bookstore you'll one day own. Z. Layla smiled and hugged the book like it was treasure. She didn't know this book was printed by a company Zion owned. She didn't know the name on the back cover was one of his pen names. But somehow, she felt seen. That night Zion sat on his balcony, looking at the stars. He thought about Layla's eyes, her honesty, her laughter. He wanted to tell her. He wanted to walk into the cafe and say, Layla, I'm rich. Very rich. But I didn't want you to know. But then, he remembered the last woman he dated. The way her love disappeared the day his money did. He remembered fake smiles, empty promises, and lonely dinners in gold-plated dining rooms. He wasn't ready to lose Layla. Not yet. At the cafe, Layla sometimes caught herself thinking, who is Zion really? Where does he go? What does he do? But she never asked. Because trust doesn't always need answers. It needs patience. And Layla had learned that sometimes silence speaks louder than questions. For weeks now, the townspeople had noticed something. Noticed how Zion always came to the cafe. Always sat at the same table. Always looked at Layla a little longer than most men did. And people talk. That's just what they do. Mrs. Sophia, the lady with the loud earrings and louder voice, whispered at the fruit stall. He doesn't dress like us. Always quiet, always alone. I wonder what he's hiding. Mr. Kareem, the retired postman, nodded slowly. He drives an old car, but wears shoes that cost more than my salary. The cafe had never been this full. Not because of the food, but because of the story happening between the tables. Layla had become the center of everyone's curiosity. And Zion, the mystery they couldn't solve. Layla wasn't foolish. She could hear them. Words floating behind her back like smoke. She thinks she's special now. Watch, he'll leave just like the rest. No one that handsome comes without trouble. At first, she smiled through it. She told herself, they don't know him. They don't know me. It doesn't matter. But slowly, it started to hurt. It's one thing to serve coffee. It's another to serve it with your head down, pretending not to hear your name wrapped in doubt. That evening, Zion walked in like he always did. But something was different. Layla's eyes were tired. Her smile, smaller. Her voice, quieter. He asked gently, is everything okay? She looked at him for a second too long. Then nodded with a practiced smile. Of course. Just a little tired. But Zion knew better. He had seen this look before. He had worn this look before. It was the face of someone carrying words that weren't theirs, but were hurting them anyway. The next morning, as Layla walked to the market, she overheard two young women say, she thinks she's going to marry a rich man. Watch, when he finds someone prettier, she'll be back here crying. Layla stopped. Her heart ached. She had never chased money. She had never asked for attention. All she ever wanted was something real, something kind, something true. Later that day, as Layla wiped the cafe tables, she found a small note folded under Zion's usual cup. It said, when the world gets loud, I hope your heart stays quiet. Z. No name. No big gesture. Just a few quiet words. But they felt louder than everything the town had said. Layla folded the note and kept it in her apron pocket. And for the first time in days, she felt like someone understood. Sometimes the world will try to define your worth. It will talk behind your back, laugh at your dreams, question your love. But if your heart is honest, and your intentions are true, keep walking. Let them talk. Let them guess. Because real love doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stay. Layla stood in front of her classroom window, her eyes following the falling raindrops. The same streets she once walked with Zion now looked lonelier. Her heart felt heavier than the gray clouds above. Something inside her had changed. It had been days since she had last seen him. No calls. No messages. No goodbyes. Zion had disappeared. In a small town, silence speaks louder than words. People whispered behind Layla's back. She was a fool to trust that man. Didn't I say he was hiding something? He used her, then left. Layla heard every word, even when no one said it to her face. But she stayed quiet. Because deep down, she believed in him. Her heart reminded her of every moment she had spent with Zion. His kind eyes, the way he listened, how he made her laugh when life felt too heavy. He's not like what they say, she whispered to herself one night, holding on to hope like a candle in the wind. One morning, as Layla walked toward her classroom, she noticed something strange. A small white envelope was stuck between the pages of her favorite book on her desk. With trembling hands, she opened it. It wasn't long. Just a few lines, written in a way that only Zion could write. I'm sorry I left without a word. I had to go, but it was not by choice. I will return. I promise. Please wait for me. Zion. Tears welled up in her eyes. Not of sadness, but of relief. He hadn't left her. He was coming back. When Layla smiled again, people noticed. Her strength made them uncomfortable. How can she still believe in him? Even if he returns, what kind of man disappears like that? But Layla no longer cared about the noise around her. Her heart had made a choice. Weeks passed. Then months. Zion did not return. Each day became a little harder. But Layla waited. Even when her friends gave up on her. Even when her own parents started questioning her choices. Layla, maybe he's not coming back, her mother said softly one night. Layla looked at her and replied, even if he doesn't, I'll still believe in what we had. Because I know it was real. That night she cried in her pillow. But not because she was weak. Because being strong hurts. It was a cold evening. Layla was walking home with a heavy bag of groceries when she saw someone standing at her gate. Her steps froze. Her heart skipped a beat. It was him. Zion. But something was different. He wasn't wearing the simple clothes she remembered. He stood in a black tailored suit, beside a shiny black car that looked like it didn't belong in their town. His face looked tired, but his eyes still held that same love. Layla, he said, his voice soft, filled with emotion. That night, as they sat in her small living room, Layla finally asked the question her heart had whispered for months. Who are you, Zion, really? He looked down. And then he looked into her eyes. And smiled. Tomorrow. I'll show you everything. I came back. I kept my promise. Layla dropped her bag. The vegetables rolled onto the road. But she didn't care. She ran into his arms, and he held her like he had been waiting for this moment forever. She didn't ask where he went. She didn't ask why he left. Because when love is real, trust fills the silence. That morning, the sun shone brighter than usual. Layla stood by her window, holding a cup of tea. Her heart was still unsure, beating both with excitement and fear. Zion had promised to reveal everything today. Was he a criminal? A liar? Or someone she had never truly known? At 10 o'clock sharp, Zion arrived. His car, shiny, black, and silent, waited like a loyal horse from a royal story. Layla opened the passenger door, sat inside, and looked at him. He smiled. Ready? She nodded. I trust you. That trust was all he needed. They drove past the town. Past the fields. Past the road she'd never traveled before. After an hour, the buildings got taller. The shops got fancier. People dressed differently. Expensive cars. Shiny watches. Tall glass towers. This was not their world. Layla was now in his world. Finally, they stopped in front of a giant white gate. Guards stood outside. Zion didn't need to speak. They saluted and let the car in. The driveway was long. Flowers lined the sides. At the end stood a mansion, larger than any school or home Layla had ever seen. It looked like a palace. Zion parked the car. "This is my home," he said quietly. Layla's eyes widened. "But you said you had nothing." "I said I had nothing I could share, until I knew it was real." Inside the mansion, servants opened the doors, bowed, and disappeared silently. Zion took her to a small, quiet room with books and soft chairs. No gold. No marble. Just peace. He sat down and began. "My real name is Zion Al-Fahad. My family owns one of the largest companies in the country. I grew up in wealth, comfort, but also in a world full of fake people. Everyone wanted something from me. Not my heart, not my thoughts, only my money. I got tired. So, I left everything behind, and moved to that small town. I wanted to live like a simple man. That's when I met you." Layla's hands trembled. She had so many questions. But one rose above the rest. "Why didn't you tell me?" Zion looked into her eyes. "Because I had to know. If someone could love me, not my money. And you did, Layla. You stood by me when I had nothing. You loved me without knowing who I was. That is everything I ever wanted." Layla didn't speak. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But her heart, it was glowing. She stood up, walked to him, and gently held his face. "I didn't love your car. I didn't love your clothes. I loved the way you made me feel, seen." Zion smiled. The smile of a man who had finally found home. That evening, during dinner at the mansion, Zion introduced Layla to his aunt, Lady Amira. She looked at Layla from head to toe, her eyes sharp like glass. "So, you're the schoolteacher?" she said with a cold smile. "Yes, ma'am," Layla said, trying to stay polite. "You're pretty, in a simple way," the woman replied. "But love doesn't build empires." Zion tightened his grip on Layla's hand under the table. Layla smiled calmly. She had been judged before. This time, she was stronger. After dinner, Zion whispered, "Don't worry about her. She's old-fashioned." Layla didn't reply. Because deep inside she knew. This love story wasn't over. Now that the truth was out, the real challenge was just beginning. Some fairy tales have castles. Some have queens. But the scariest part of Layla's new life wasn't the gold walls. It was the silence behind them. Every corner of Zion's mansion whispered wealth. Curtains that looked like waterfalls. Walls covered in fine art. Dinners that had more spoons than Layla had ever seen in her kitchen. But what no one told her was, rich places can have cold hearts. Zion was kind. But the people around him? They stared. They whispered. They smiled too much, but meant nothing. One afternoon, Lady Amira invited Layla for tea. A beautiful room. A silver teapot. Fresh roses. But behind the beauty, Layla felt a trap. "So, dear," Amira began, sipping her tea. "Tell me, how do you plan to support Zion's future?" Layla blinked. "Support? Yes. As a wife, you should bring something to the table." Layla looked around. "Love isn't enough?" Amira gave a thin smile. "Not when empires are at stake." Later that evening, Zion found Layla by the garden fountain. She was quiet. He sat beside her, holding her hand. "She said something, didn't she?" Layla didn't answer. Just looked at the stars. Finally she said, "Zion, do I belong here?" Zion's eyes filled with pain. "You belong with me. That's all that matters." "But do they believe that?" He had no answer. Because even though he had all the money in the world, he couldn't buy respect for her. That weekend, there was a grand gala. Rich people from all over the country were attending. Zion wanted Layla by his side. But Layla hesitated. She had no designer dress. No jewels. No heels worth thousands. Still, Zion brought her a dress. Simple. Elegant. White with gold. She looked like a moonbeam. When they entered the ballroom, heads turned. Some in shock. Some in judgment. But one woman whispered, "Is that her? The school teacher?" Layla heard it. But she held Zion's hand tighter. She stood tall. Because sometimes, love is the only crown a woman needs. Later that night, Zion was called into a private room. His uncle and aunt were waiting. "You can't marry her," his uncle said firmly. "She's not one of us," Amira added. "She's everything I want," Zion replied, calm but firm. "Then be ready to lose your shares. Your name. Everything," the uncle warned. It was a war now. Between legacy and love. Zion returned to his room, his face pale. Sometimes, the bravest love is the one that walks away, so the other doesn't have to bleed. The morning after the gala, the mansion was still. No staff bustled. No breakfast sounds. No Zion. Layla stood near the tall window. In her hand, a letter. On her face, peace, but her heart? Shaking. She had made up her mind. Zion was caught between his family and her. He would choose love. She knew it. But she couldn't let him burn down his life for her smile. So she packed a small bag. No gold. No dress. Only memories. Zion found the note just before noon. "My love. You gave me a world I never dreamed of. But I won't let you lose yours for me. Don't come after me. I love you enough to set you free. Always yours. Layla." His hands trembled. His heart broke, quietly. Like glass falling on carpet. Layla didn't go far. She returned to her little rented house near the school. She put on her simple clothes. And the town welcomed her, not with words, but with curious eyes. "Where's the prince?" someone whispered. Layla smiled. "He belongs to a kingdom. I was just a storybook." But the children at her school? They didn't care. To them, she was still Miss Layla, the woman with warm eyes and colorful chalk. Back at the mansion, Zion changed. The sparkle in his eyes? Gone. The loud parties? Cancelled. He sat in his study, reading her letter again and again. His family thought they won. But they didn't know. Zion wasn't giving up. He was planning. 3 weeks later, Layla returned home from school to find a box on her doorstep. Wrapped in brown paper. Inside, a tiny silver key. A letter with one line. "Some places are built for queens, not teachers. But this one is for both." Curious, she followed the address written below. It led to a quiet corner of the town, where stood a small white house with red roses at the gate. Her house. Zion had bought it in her name. No guards. No gold. Just love and roots. As she turned to leave, a voice called out. "Leaving again?" It was Zion. Not in a suit. Not in a fancy car. Just a man. Holding a flower. Soaked in the rain. "Why are you here?" Layla whispered. "To water what I planted." He smiled. "And this time, I'm not letting you go." Zion knelt, not on velvet, not at a gala, but in the mud, outside a small house. He held out a simple ring. No diamonds. No flash. Just truth. "Marry me, not to complete my world, but to build a new one. With laughter, simplicity, and stubborn love." Layla's eyes filled with tears. "Yes," she whispered. And somewhere, the rain stopped. Some people walk into your life like sunlight. Others return like storms. And some never really leave. Layla and Zion were finally together. Not in a mansion, but in their little white house with the red rose gate. Life was simple. Mornings with tea. Evenings with stories. And laughter in between. Layla taught at school. Zion started a small community library. They didn't need crowds or cameras, just each other. But peace has a habit of being tested. One evening, as Zion closed the library, a black car pulled up quietly. A man stepped out. Sleek suit. Sharp shoes. Cold eyes. "Zion Khan?" he asked, his voice crisp. Zion's smile faded. He knew that voice. "Rayan," he muttered. Rayan was not just an old friend. He was the man Zion once beat, in business, in charm, in reputation. But this time, Rayan wasn't here for money. He was here for revenge. Rayan visited their home the next day. He acted polite, brought flowers. Layla felt uneasy. And she was right. After dinner, Rayan asked Zion to walk him out. Outside, he spoke plainly. "You left your empire, Zion. That's noble. But your absence made space for people like me." Zion frowned. "You don't scare me." Rayan smirked. "Maybe not me, but what about your wife's reputation? Her job? This little fairy tale life?" Zion's fists clenched. But Rayan walked away. Thread made. Message delivered. Layla watched Zion grow quiet again. He wouldn't tell her everything. But she felt it. Something was wrong. At school, strange things started happening. Whispers. Letters. One parent even asked, "Should our children be taught by the wife of a man like him?" Layla tried to stay strong. But Zion saw her tears. One night, she said softly, "If loving me puts you in danger, Zion, let me go." He shook his head instantly. "I didn't give up the world to lose you to fear." The next morning, Zion surprised everyone. He walked into the town hall, with Layla beside him, and faced the media that Rayan had stirred. "I am Zion Khan. Yes, I once lived in luxury. Yes, I left it all. And yes, I married a schoolteacher. But if that makes her less worthy, then perhaps the world needs more teachers and fewer kings." People listened. Some mocked. But others? They clapped. Slowly. Loudly. That night, Zion received one last call from Rayan. "You've made enemies, Zion. I hope your love can protect you." But Zion smiled. "It already has." Layla and Zion knew storms would come again. But this time, they wouldn't hide. They'd stand together. Not as a billionaire and a girl, but as a man and woman who chose love over fear. And sometimes, that's the richest life of all. Some stories end in peace. Some in pain. And some, in the courage to choose love, even when it costs everything. Just when life felt calm again, Rayan returned. But not with threats. With a trap. A fake legal case. False documents. And one goal, destroy Zion's name. Within days, Zion's name was back in newspapers, this time for all the wrong reasons. Fraud. Hidden wealth. Illegal charity funds. Layla was shocked. The town whispered again. Even Zion's library funding was frozen. He was under arrest. Not because he was guilty, but because someone wanted him crushed. Layla sat alone on the porch, holding Zion's old watch. Her eyes swollen from crying. Then came a knock. It was Rayan. "Sign this," he said, holding a contract. "And I'll drop all charges." Layla opened the paper. Divorce papers. Rayan smirked. "You leave Zion. Publicly. Say he tricked you. You'll be safe. He'll be ruined. Exactly what he deserves." Layla trembled. But she stared him in the eye and said softly, "No deal." Rayan's face turned red. "You'll regret this." But Layla had already made her choice. News spread of Layla's refusal. Many still doubted. But one journalist, a young girl Layla once taught, believed her. She began digging. And within a week, she exposed everything. Rayan's emails. His fake papers. The truth. The nation turned. Rayan was arrested. Zion was released. Justice had come back. When Zion walked out of the courthouse, Layla stood there. Same white dress. Same smile. He ran to her. Held her. You believed in me when I didn't, he whispered. She replied, That's what love is. Zion never returned to the billionaire life. He and Layla expanded the library, built a small school, named it the Garden of Hope. Kids came from every village. Layla taught them with joy. Zion told them stories. Stories about truth, about courage, about a girl who chose love over comfort, and a man who gave up his crown just to find his queen. Some fairy tales have palaces, some have crowns, but the most beautiful ones have a simple house, two brave hearts, and a love that never gives up. Speech balloon. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who believes in real love. Because sometimes, happily ever after comes quietly.